They say there are places where time itself refuses to move, where silence isn't just the absence of sound, but a state of alertness. A place where even light seems to hesitate, as if it knows it's not welcome there. One of those places lies, hidden deep within the shadowy folds of the Appalachian Mountains, a forgotten valley buried between dense forests and ancient hills. Known by locals only as Dead Hollow. No one knows exactly when the name began, but it's been whispered by old lumberjacks since long before roads carved through the hills. They claimed animals avoided it. The vegetation was drier, the trees twisted, and the nights longer. Those who entered after dark never came back, and those who did never spoke about it. Aaron, a 26-year-old aspiring documentarian from Charleston, West Virginia, was fascinated by local legends. He ran a small YouTube channel with a loyal following. His personal mission was to explore allegedly haunted places and film. Everything determined to prove that most myths were nothing but superstition, skeptical and curious. He was drawn to Dead Hollow after overhearing a story in a local bar. An old logger leaned in close and muttered, "If you go in there at night, you'll hear the whispers. Just don't look back." Never look back. That was all Aaron needed to hear. It would make for excellent content. The following week, he followed coordinates he found on an old surveyor's map, trekking through barely visible trails until he reached the edge of the valley. Surrounded by hills choked with vegetation, the trees looked like they were writhing in pain. No birds, no insects, not a single natural sound. It was as if the world had hit pause. He set up camp just before sundown, positioned his cameras, activated his audio gear. Everything seemed normal until night fell. Like a suffocating, heavy curtain, the sky, once clear, became shrouded in a thick fog, and the air grew dense, like each breath dragged grains of sand into his lungs. At exactly 10:14 p.m., the first sound emerged, a whisper as faint as a passing thought. Aaron froze. He removed his headphones. The whisper stopped. Put them back. On it returned. Faint, rhythmic, like a phrase repeated in a forgotten tongue. Thinking it was the wind, he turned off the recorder. Silence. Turned it back on. There it was again. Around midnight, Aaron decided to trace the sound. Grabbing his flashlight, he followed it deeper into the valley. Each step sank into colder, softer ground. He walked nearly 300 meters before his flashlight flickered and died. The darkness consumed him like a living cloak. Then the whispers grew louder. All around him, surrounding him, he began to shiver, not from cold, but from something else. It felt like unseen fingers brushing against his skin, like eyes staring from the void. He turned to retreat. That's when he heard it clearly. You heard it. Now you belong. The voice echoed inside his skull. Panicked, he ran in the opposite direction, tripping over roots and branches, no longer sure where he was. The valley seemed endless, like he had slipped out of reality. The trees twisted into grotesque shapes, some like writhing bodies, others like gaping mouths frozen in eternal screams, and the whispers had become muffled screams, cries of sorrow, cries of agony. Aaron collapsed to his knees when he saw it, a figure standing ahead, a translucent silhouette, faceless, but with a gaping vertical mouth. The sound came from there, the whisper. He tried to scream, but no sound escaped. He tried to move, but his limbs betrayed him. The entity floated toward him, and as it approached, the world warped. Trees pulsed, the ground trembled, the air thickened like liquid. The next morning, a local search party found Aaron's camp. The tent was untouched, cameras intact, but every memory card was corrupted. His footprints vanished a few meters from the site. No trace of Aaron Dot except one thing. An audio recorder, still functioning, contained a single, intact snippeter, few seconds long. A whisper, muffled but unmistakable, repeated again and again. You heard it, now you belong. Aaron was never found, and dead, hollow remains, mapped, unmarked, wrapped in silence and half-told tales. Travelers avoid looking in its direction. Those few who dared venture near claim they heard nothing, but came back changed, quieter, distant, as if hearing something no one else could. So, if one night, on a moonless evening, you hear a whisper coming from the forest, don't respond, don't record, and for the love of all that exists, never look back. Deep within the Appalachian Mountains, straddling the border between Tennessee and North Carolina, lies an ancient forest, barely mapped, cloaked in mist, where sound seems to die before reaching the horizon. This is where a legend lives, a whisper passed from hunters to old mountain folk, like a secret that refuses to be forgotten. They speak of a cabin, an old wooden structure, overgrown with moss, small windows, and a faded red door. Harmless at first glance, but they say this cabin walks not metaphorically, it literally moves. One day it's in a clearing, the next at the foot of a hill. Sometimes it appears just a few feet behind whoever dares to speak of it. And if you step inside, it never lets you leave the same dot. It's the kind of tale shared between swigs of cheap whiskey and trembling cigarettes. People laugh, but always nervously, because deep down they know something's out there. That's what drew for young adults to the area on a cold October Friday in 1997. Jared, Emily, Travis, and Megan, all in their early 20s, all with a reckless love for exploring abandoned places. Travis was the skeptic, Jared the leader, Emily the voice of reason, and Megan, she was obsessed with things that walked the line between the living and the dead. They camped near an old lumber trail, guided by half-finished maps and whispered accounts. Their goal was clear: find the cabin, film it, post it on a paranormal forum, go viral. On their second day of hiking, the mist thickened and cell phones lost signal. That's when they found it. It wasn't there that morning. But when they returned from exploring a dry riverbed, it stood there calm, still nestled between towering trees that seemed to bow around it. It matched every detail of the legend, weathered, misshapen. The red door looked like it was breathing. Jared laughed. Travis mocked. Emily hesitated. Megan smiled. They went inside. The interior was cramped and musty. It smelled of wet wood, damp earth, and something oddly sweet like rotting flowers. There was a fireplace with fresh ash, a rocking chair swaying slowly, as if someone had just risen. Old black and white photographs lined the walls, families no one recognized, faces with hollow eyes, children grinning with too many teeth. The door slammed shut behind them. Travis tried to open it first. Locked, no bolt, no key. It just wouldn't open. That's when the sounds began. Footsteps above them, then along the walls. Something was walking, circling. The cabin breathed. They looked out the window, and the forest they once knew was gone. In its place, trees they didn't recognize, a purple sky, and light that felt wrong. The cabin had moved. They weren't in the same place anymore. Emily screamed. Megan whispered softly. Travis grabbed an old axe and pounded at the door. Jared kept filming, frozen in disbelief. The cabin started to tremble. From the floor, roots burst through like skeletal fingers. The windows slammed shut. The clock stopped. Time no longer passed. And then the cabin spoke. A voice coming from the ceiling, the floor, and from inside their bones, whispered : double quotes, now, ... You are my feet. Megan smiled again, said she understood, that the cabin chooses who will carry its steps. With glassy eyes, she pulled Emily toward the fireplace. The fire lit itself. What happened next? No one knows for sure. 3 days later, Jared was found wandering naked on the roadside, covered in mud and dried blood. He repeated the same sentence, over and over: she has legs. She walks at night. He remembered nothing about what happened inside. Didn't know where his friends were. But he shook uncontrollably at the sound of creaking wood. Search parties combed the area. No sign of the cabin. No trails. The forest itself seemed rearranged, like it had shifted to hide something. Jared spent the rest of his life in a psychiatric hospital. He never spoke again, but he drew the same image over and over. A cabin with legs made of roots, eyes in the windows, and a red door that grinned. Today, hikers still claim to see a similar cabin deep in the woods, always in a different place, always shrouded in a mist that doesn't belong. If you see it, don't go inside. But if you do, don't stop moving, because it only needs 4 feet for people to walk for centuries, and it's always looking for more. Hidden deep within the heart of the Blue Ridge Mountains, part of the ancient Appalachian Range, lies a forgotten trail. There, as the sun begins to rise and the mist crawls along the ground like a spectral veil, some travelers swear they hear a distant melody, sorrowful, haunting, and hypnotic, a tune that doesn't belong to this world. The old folks call it the Lament of the Mist Woman, a legend whispered from generation to generation, always in hushed tones, always with wary eyes cast toward the forest. The story begins over a century ago, when a woman named Clara Whitmore lived alone in a remote cabin with her 2 children. Her husband had vanished during the war, and Clara cared for the land and her children with quiet strength and enduring hope. She was kind, they say, but there was always sadness behind her eyes. One morning, her children went out to gather firewood and never came back. Some claimed the mountain's cold had taken them. Others believed something worse, had something that moved in the shadows among the trees. Clara searched for days, then weeks, then months. And when all hope was gone, she climbed to the highest cliff in the region and threw herself into the void, her soul weeping. Since that day, the mist along that trail has never been the same. They say it carries her spirit and her song. Decades later, in 2003, a group of scouts set up camp near the area. They were led by Mr. Collins, a grizzled local guide who knew the trails like the back of his hand and didn't believe in ghost stories. They camped near a clearing wrapped in fog, not far from the old cliff. Everything was calm until 4 a.m., when one of the boys woke up crying. He said he'd heard a woman's voice, singing, no words, just a melody, soft, mournful, too beautiful to ignore. At first, the adults thought it was just the wind. But then, 3 of the boys began walking toward the woods, eyes open, but vacant as if under a spell. The guide caught them just in time, pulling them back. They all repeated the same phrase: she just wants company. She's alone in the cold. The next morning, they left early. But the youngest, Ben, wouldn't stop humming the melody. In the days that followed, he withdrew from school, wandered alone into the woods, and spoke of a woman who talked to him. She's kind, he said. She needs me. 2 weeks later, Ben disappeared. His body was never found. But his mother swore she woke one night to hear the same melody drifting in from the backyard. When she opened the door, there was only fog. Since then, New sightings are reported year after year. Always at dawn, always in the same region, people hear the melody. Some claim to see a woman in white between the trees, her hair long and soaked, her face blurred, as if time itself had forgotten her. But it's the song that leaves a mark on those who hear it. A tune that never leaves your mind. They say if you listen for too long, you begin to sing too, and with every note, you lose a little more of yourself. Recently, a group of YouTubers set out to investigate the legend. They wanted to record the song proof it was nothing more than local folklore. They brought high-end microphones, GPS, flashlights. Only 2 came back. The third Logan disappeared into the mist while filming an intro at the base of the cliff. His camera was found days later. Lens cracked, battery drained. On the memory card, there was only one short video. In it, Logan stares into the forest, eyes glazed. A soft melody plays in the background, low but captivating. He slowly turns to the camera, smiles, and says, "She just wants company. Now it's my turn to sing." The video ends in static. Since then, the trail has been closed to the public, but some still try to enter. Some want to capture the song, others go out of curiosity, and a few go out of loneliness. And still, the Mist Woman sings. Every morning, just before sunrise, searching for voices to join hers, longing for company, so she'll never be alone in that cold forest again. So if you ever find yourself in the mountains, waking before dawn, and hear a beautiful, sorrowful melody drifting through the fog, don't follow it. Don't repeat it. Don't listen to the end, because, after the final note, you'll never just be you again. And the mist will never let you leave.